Most people think they understand love languages. They hear terms like words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, and receiving gifts, and they assume it is a simple concept. They think love languages are just a way to know how someone likes to be treated. But the truth is far more deeper than that. Love languages are not just preferences, they are emotional patterns, they are psychological needs. And most importantly, they are often misunderstood in relationships, which leads to confusion, frustration, and emotional disconnect. The biggest mistake people make is thinking that love languages are about expressing love in a mechanical way, like a checklist. If I do this, my partner will feel loved. But human emotions don't work like instructions. They work through perception, emotional history, attachment styles, and subconscious conditioning. That's why even when people try to love each other correctly, they still feel unloved. Because love is not just what you give, it is also how it is received. And how it is received depends on much more than love languages alone. To understand love languages properly, we first need to understand why they exist in the first place. Every human being has emotional needs. These needs are shaped by childhood experiences, relationships, and emotional environments. Some people grow up in environments where words were powerful, so they learn to value verbal reassurance. Some grow up in environments where actions mattered more than words, so they value effort over speech. Some people associate closeness with safety, so they need physical presence. Others associate independence with safety, so they prefer space even in love. So love languages are not random preferences. They are emotional survival patterns. But here's where things get complicated. Most people assume that once they know their partner's love language, relationships become easy. But that's not true. Because knowing is not enough. Understanding emotional depth is more complex. For example, someone may say their love language is quality time. So you spend time with them. You sit together, talk, go out, give attention. But still, they feel disconnected. Why? Because quality time is not just physical presence, it is emotional presence. If you are physically there but mentally distracted, the emotional need is still not met. This is where most relationships fail. People think they are expressing love, but they are not emotionally aligned with what the other person actually needs. Now let's go deeper. Love languages are not just about how you love others. They are also about how you expect to be loved. And expectations are dangerous when they are not communicated or understood properly. Because when someone expects love in one form and receives it in another, they feel unloved even if love is being given. For example, imagine a person whose love language is words of affirmation. They need verbal reassurance. They need to hear, "I love you," "I appreciate you," "I'm proud of you." But their partner expresses love through acts of service. They cook, they help, they provide support, they show care through actions. From their perspective, they are giving love constantly. But the other person still feels empty because their emotional need is not verbal. It is auditory. So both people are loving each other, but both feel misunderstood. And this is the silent problem in many relationships. Another important misunderstanding is that people think love languages are fixed. They believe once you identify your love language, it never changes. But that is not true. Love languages can evolve with emotional experiences, maturity, healing, and relationship dynamics. A person who once needed constant attention may later value space and stability. A person who once valued gifts may later value emotional connection more deeply. Because love languages are not just personality traits, they are emotional responses to life experiences. Now let's talk about something deeper that most people ignore: emotional translation. Even if two people have different love languages, they can still have a strong relationship if they understand emotional translation. Emotional translation means understanding the intention behind the action, not just the action itself. For example, if your partner's love language is acts of service and they clean your room or help you with tasks, that is their way of saying, "I care about you." If you only look for words and ignore actions, you will miss the love being given. Similarly, if your love language is words and your partner expresses love through actions, they may be speaking a different emotional language, but the meaning is still love. The problem is not lack of love. The problem is lack of interpretation. Now let's go even deeper into psychology. Love languages are deeply connected to attachment styles. Someone with anxious attachment may crave words of affirmation and constant reassurance because they fear abandonment. Someone with avoidant attachment may prefer acts of service or independence based love because emotional closeness feels overwhelming. Someone secure may adapt across all love languages more easily because they are emotionally balanced. So when people say, "This is my love language," what they are often saying is, "This is what makes me feel emotionally safe." And safety is more important than love itself in many cases. Because without emotional safety, love feels unstable. Now let's address another major misunderstanding. Many people think giving their love language to others is enough. For example, someone whose love language is physical touch may constantly touch their partner, hug them, or seek closeness, assuming this is how love is expressed. But if their partner's love language is not physical touch, they may feel overwhelmed instead of loved. So love languages are not just about giving what you want. They are about giving what the other person understands emotionally. This is where emotional intelligence becomes important. Love without understanding becomes frustration, but love with understanding becomes connection. Another hidden truth is that love languages often reveal emotional gaps. If someone strongly needs gifts, it may not just be about material things. It may represent feeling valued. If someone needs constant words, it may represent emotional insecurity. If someone needs quality time, it may represent fear of emotional distance. If someone needs physical touch, it may represent desire for emotional grounding. So love languages are symbolic, not literal. Now let's talk about why people still feel unloved even when their love language is being met. Because emotional validation is not just about action. It is about emotional presence behind the action. If someone is doing things just to fulfill responsibility, it feels empty. But if someone is doing things with emotional intention, it feels meaningful. That is why two people can do the same thing, but the emotional impact can be completely different. One feels love, the other feels nothing. Now let's talk about modern relationships. In today's world, love languages are often misunderstood because communication is weak. People assume instead of expressing, they expect instead of asking, they judge instead of understanding, and this creates emotional confusion. Someone might say, "I am doing everything for you," while the other person feels, "You are doing nothing for me." Both are right in their perception, but both are disconnected emotionally. This is why communication is more important than love languages themselves. Because without communication, love languages become assumptions, and assumptions destroy relationships. Now let's go deeper into emotional maturity. Mature love is not about finding someone who matches your love language perfectly. Mature love is about understanding differences and adapting emotionally. It is about saying, "I understand you may not express love the way I expect, but I can see your intention." Immature love demands perfect alignment. Mature love understands emotional differences, and this difference decides whether relationships survive or fail. Now let's talk about a very important realization. Love languages are not about receiving love perfectly. They are about feeling emotionally understood. And understanding is created when effort meets awareness. If you make effort but ignore emotional feedback, connection weakens. If you understand emotional feedback and adjust your effort, connection grows. This is why relationships are dynamic, not static. They require adjustment, not perfection. Now let's address something very important. Many people use love languages as a test. They say things like, "If you don't love me in my love language, you don't love me at all." But this is a very limited way of thinking, because love is not always expressed in the way we expect. Sometimes it is expressed in ways we don't immediately recognize. Love is not just emotional compatibility, it is emotional interpretation. Now let's come to the final realization. Most people misunderstand love languages because they focus on expression instead of perception. They focus on giving instead of understanding. They focus on expectation instead of awareness. But real love begins when you stop asking, "Am I being loved in my language?" and start asking, "Am I understanding how love is being given?" Because in the end, love languages are not about labels. They are about connection. And connection only happens when two people are willing to understand each other beyond their own emotional preferences. So don't just learn love languages. Learn emotional translation. Because once you understand that, your relationships don't just improve, they transform.